Look, I mean, we believe in the next 6 months, NASDAQ 20,000 is where we go to. I think we're just going through a digestion period. Fed's going to start to cut. There's worries about a recession. We still think 20% chance of a recession. It's a mid-cycle slowdown, but the AI revolution, it's a fourth industrial revolution, biggest tech trend we've seen in 35, 40 years. That's why we're bullish, despite some of the nervousness we're seeing. I don't view the antitrust as a big issue. I think, look, you had a lot of hype going into earnings. Clearly, they're robust numbers, robust guidance. Blacklaw delays were put to rest. I think the stock's oversold here. I mean, we continue to think there's a $4 trillion market cap when you look over the next year. And it's just the start of this spending trend. I mean, essentially, we're talking about building a new foundation. It starts with Godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia. But then, of course, it's Microsoft, Google, Amazon, hyperscale players, names like Palantir and others. And that's why I believe we're only in the early days. Hyperscale has been some of our favorites. Microsoft, Amazon, Google, specifically Microsoft in terms of where they're positioned on Copilot, on OpenAI. But we view it as a gap. In other words, the CapEx, there's $1 trillion of AI CapEx coming down the pike. You're not going to see the payoff right away. In other words, it takes 3, 6, 9, 12 months. I think right now we're in between those gaps. It's an issue, but I don't believe that the company gets broken up. I mean, they'll fight this for years in terms of the courts. Remember, Microsoft beat DOJ. If you go back to late 90s, 2000. I think probably Alphabet is probably one of the most undervalued large cap stocks here. If you look post earnings, this is a stock that probably has some of the best upside. I think Alphabet here is being way mispriced for the bad news, along with the hyperscalers, Palantir, AMD, is part of the Nvidia trade in terms on AI. Tesla continues to be one of the top. I'd argue Tesla maybe is the most undervalued AI play in the market, given where full self-driving and autonomous is ultimately going. And then cybersecurity, names like CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, Zscaler are some of our favorites here. Look, EV, if you look, you've seen softer demand globally, but Tesla next year will produce over and sell 2.2 million vehicles, and you'll have 8-10 million Teslas on the market driving around over the next 2 years. 6 million today. Look, they've clearly gone through a transition, but I believe demand starts to stabilize, rebound in China. I think a lot of the price cuts are in the rearview mirror, and now the big part of the story, full self-driving and autonomous, comes to the Tesla story. I think Robotaxi Day, October 10th, is going to be a historical day for the Tesla story. And I could argue the autonomous FSD could add, that's $1 trillion in terms of that valuation, in our opinion. Palantir, I'd say on the software side, is probably one of the best AI plays in the market. It's really about use cases. Palantir really started out of the government, and now they've transitioned to enterprise. AIP as their core product portfolio. Look, it speaks to when you think about Nvidia and you go for an AI chip, the multiplier for every dollar spent on an Nvidia chip is $8 to $10 across tech. A lot of that spend is going to be on the use cases, software. That's where Palantir plays. I think Palantir continues to be under the radar in the broader AI spend. Yeah, I think, look, Trump would be negative for the AI trade because of the China piece, more restrictions. And that's something, the fears are that would really ramp up U.S.-China cold tech war, restrictions. So I could argue probably Trump's probably negative for AI trade, probably negative for EVs, but yet positive for Tesla because of the Musk relationship and potentially could accelerate FSD. I think Harris would probably be net bullish for big tech. Could be negative for Tesla, depending on the how that goes. So I think it also adds to the nervousness. I think as soon as September comes around, investors get nervous. And it's not just about the Fed, macro. You had the Black Monday, Tokyo currency, unwind fear, that we saw a few weeks ago. You're just seeing a volatile market that's playing out. Look, I think you talk about second, third, fourth derivatives, and there's a lot of plays that could be beneficiaries in Korea, not just Samsung, SK Hynix. You even look when you go into the supply chain on the chip side, on the power supply side, when it comes to data center. I mean, there's a lot of that to me in Korea is where there are a lot of plays. It's not just on, of course, it's infrastructure on the chip side, but I think there's going to be a lot of plays on the energy side, on the data center. You look at Samsung should be a big beneficiary. I mean, Apple launches iPhone, within this next week. That's really going to start this AI-driven super cycle. Samsung will also clearly benefit from that as well. I view it as you put the seatbelt on. It's going to be volatile the next 4 to 8 weeks. But I don't view it as the end of the tech bull market. I just view it as a bump in the road, a digestion period as we navigate through Fed starting to cut, election, worries about tech stocks, but yet look at demand that continues to accelerate. So our view is kind of like you use it as opportunities to own favorite names depending on your risk profile, but don't get too caught up in the fear.